Is this a byproduct of the black woman leading the black household about 70, 80% of the time in America? Not outside of America, but inside of America.
The black woman has led the black family and the black community ever since black Americans have been over here. That the matriarchy goes back to slavery. As I was telling you the other day, it's layered. So you have what comes out of slavery, and then you also have what comes out of Marxism, which is feminism. Feminism is an outgrowth of Marxism, or one of the many children of Marxism.
So the black matriarchy, the idea of it or the concept, it basically came from YouTube. As far as when I learned about it, I basically learned about it from BGS Ibmore long time ago. I want to say probably 2016 is when I first discovered the concept of the black matriarchy, because I never really could put a place on it. Like, I knew it was something off or something kind of weird. I did understand prior that uh black women had a lot of influence and control. I just looked at it as basically the power structures wanted black women on top to undermine their men. I didn't necessarily have a word for it or anything like that. That's what I knew what was going on. But I didn't, like I say, I didn't have a word for it. But when I came to when I was introduced to a guy at my job, at an old job, introduced me to BGS Itmore, and basically that's when I discovered the idea of the black matriarchy. And just like the guy in the video, he explained where it came from, pretty much from basically the plantations and the basically slavery in America, and then reintroduced again to uh, the basically first and second waves of feminism, with feminism being an offshoot of Marxism. Matriarchy is a part of that idea. A lot of white women look up to actually black women as like their leader, because black women um make they have an actual matriarchy. They have a lot of black women have a lot of power over their men. Now, the weird thing about all of this, and the dystopian part about all of this, is all of the things that I mentioned are social engineering psyops by the government. Feminism, um, even the whole idea of keeping the black community a pigeonholed matriarchy is all by design. Very much by design. And the thing is that being black in America, if you live in a black community, quote unquote, you basically, it's safe to say, you live um in and around black matriarchal uh basically structures. I mean, that's just the way it is. Now, do black women necessarily bother black men or whatever? No, black women don't necessarily bother black men and try to control them and all of that, like outside of a relationship, when you're just going out on the street. Not No, that's not the case. um I mean, pretty much people tend to stick to themselves. But the when it comes to the relationship aspect of things, that's where the black matriarch rears the its ugly head per se, because that's the whole thing. Like, um the black matriarchy is just continue on by basically men continuing to just basically procreate with black women that have these matriarchal behaviors and views. They basically, in essence, um continue on this behavior, continue on this um societal abnormality, if you want to say, by just basically dealing with these women, continuously procreating with these types of women. It continues on this failed matriarchy, because I think definitely one of the things I do know, a lot of black women do know that that this concept is true. um they do acknowledge that. I think most of them do, if not all of them. The thing is that what they don't like about it and don't agree with is that it's a failed matriarchy, meaning it is in fact a matriarchy, but it's not a successful matriarchy, and it's pretty failed. Basically, very much, in case you just first of all didn't understand what a matriarchy is, it's basically a societal function that is basically controlled by women. I mean, basically, women control the interpersonal decisions, the household decisions, uh, and the decisions out of the household. In society, that's a matriarchy. Okay, and obviously, looking at, just if I could just point out to locally, just Chicago. Chicago definitely has very much a lot of the elements of a black matriarchy. And that typically is a black woman that's very masculine, very loud. It doesn't really matter blue collar or white collar, but they tend to be, I would say, working class, kind of blue collar, and basically very aggressive, um, fast talking, louder voice. That's the typical type of black woman that is in Chicago. Okay, and that is probably like that in different parts of different black communities across the United States, from some degree or another, right? And these women operate in a structure that basically is around, they're surrounded by simps. Their simps are their um basically, like, it's like a hyena clan, and the women are on top, right? In the hyena clan, they're the like alpha um members of the hyena clan. Then the men, basically do their bidding. They make up the babies. They make the babies. They hunt and all of that, right? Um, that is very typical of black community. That is pretty failed matriarchy, where basically the women use these simps, and a lot of men in these urban, a lot of these environments are urban environments as well. Most of them I would say is urban, but not all of them. Because you see this in the suburban black communities too, where basically a lot of guys that are probably I'm probably one of the only few individuals that probably the only one that points out that the street guys or quote unquote cool guys because people push a lot of powers that be push hip hop and rap onto the masses um for propaganda purposes, so they have everyone believe that you got to be this hardcore gangster type of individual to be considered cool. So a lot of these guys, they don't consider that they are possibly simps in this regard as well, because a lot of the narratives of a simp is kind of a working guy that's a dweeb that can't really get women. That's considered like, a guy that's got to be he's got to basically be a simp to get women, right? He's got to like, just do all kinds of crazy stuff and bend over backwards and get basically abused by women, kind of like a white dude that's a cuck, right? And the other narrative is that the cool guy, quote unquote, the guy in the hood that sells drugs and gets caught a lot of times and goes to prison and has to deal with all kinds of stuff in prison and in jail, is not a simp. And I pointed out on plenty of videos breaking down how these guys are also simps too, because basically they're doing a lot of this to please women, to get favors from women. And a lot of these women are, these basically matriarchal women in these black communities. They're trying to peacock to these women, and selling the drugs and selling the dope makes them the money for them to get these chains and get all of these clothes and cars to monkey dance and peacock for these women. And the women they primarily do that for are these matriarchal women, okay, that are in the black community. But I again, I call them simps as well, because basically they're doing all of this to try to get women, but they don't necessarily look at them themselves as a simp, but a simp is a simp nonetheless. And pretty much that's something that I noticed over the years and I pointed out. And it's very simple. It's basically, are you risking anything or doing anything, basically overdoing yourself to try to basically um compete in court for women? I would say trying to take penitentiary chances in order for you to live a normal life, or a life to that you could earn a living to actually court women, obviously, or court a multitude of women. That if you going through all of that, in my opinion, you are a simp. Because I mean, women date men that don't have any money. At the end of the day, and ask me how I know that, because most of my friends were broke just like I was, and we were still getting women. So the thing is that, basically these communities are failed communities. And again, going back to women, they understand that they have a lot of strong influence on these communities. And they also agree that a lot of the black communities are matriarchals, matriarchies, where women are at the head of a lot of decisions and what gets done and what doesn't get done. So the problem, unfortunately, is that they don't want to own the fact that they, by being the head of the household, they are the head person to blame. Okay. If the team is not winning, after you look at the players, you look at the coach and you fire the coach. The coach doesn't, the team doesn't win. The coach gets scrutinized. Because they're women, I guess maybe that has something to do with it or whatever. They don't want to take the blame of being the losing coach. Okay. They don't want that to hold that L. Women women have a very hard time holding accountability, and mainly bad accountability or negative accountability. Um, they have a really hard time with that. And I mean, the psychology of that is for another video of another day. But it's a video. It's so intense and so in depth that it would need an entire video to break down female accountability or inability to be accountable or be held accountable. It again, it would need an entire video just in itself. So the thing is that from that, not wanting to be held accountable for being the leader, they don't want to hold the blame. They it's like, okay, you got to look at it like this, right? Because this is sports terms is easier to understand. So black women are the head coach. They're the head coach. They're the leading the black community primarily, right? By proxy of the slave plantations, Jim Crow, social engineering, whatever, COINTELPRO, whatever the situation is. Um, it society as it is black women are matriarchs in their households. So they're the head coach. Now, after the head coach, you have the assistant coach, which would be black men. Black men are the, assistant coaches. Okay. So, basically, what tends to happen is when the team is losing, they don't look at the assistant coach. They look at, and they don't even blame the assistant coach. They blame the head coach. The head coach gets all the blame, and basically ultimately gets fired. Well, the dilemma is, again, it's, as crazy as it might sound or even look or whatever, what a lot of times black women do is blame the assistant coach for their team, which their team would be their children, um, for losing, for being losers in society, going out, killing, drug dealing, gang banging, slanging, and all kinds of other stuff, right? They blame the assistant coach, which is the black man, for their problems of being a leader. So because of all of that, you have these failed societies, you have these failed communities, these failed cities that black women, the smartest of them, understand that they are a big part of this, by design or not or whatever, by global government, or global, um secret society agendas, whatever they are,
in the state that they are in, and they understand that they are matriarchal. They have a situation where they make rules in their household. It's to the point. It has been to the point to where basically it's not like the man is in the house and they're arguing over power. It's not that. It's more concise than that. It's to the point where now the woman just she's like a lot of black women are like bears. Um the bears are natural single mothers where because the bear is so aggressive, they can't have a long-term monogamous relationship, at least out in the woods. Not like that. Bears don't they don't like, rear their young together. They just don't. That's because of maybe probably aggression or just basically just their behavior, their biology. The bear has her babies basically by herself. The other males are around, obviously in the woods, okay, but they have the bear cubs by themselves. They go den, hibernate, and they have the babies and the cubs, and then they raise them by themselves. Anybody come around, male or female, bear wise or any other predator, they are very vicious towards that other animal. Okay, so it's typically just kind of how it is in the black community, where not to say that this is not spread outward. This is definitely something that's going on in other ethnicities or cultures, okay, in America. It is getting more common because basically the woman just basically gets pregnant, has maybe some type of interactions with the man, and then they finally go their separate way, and she has these babies that she's raising by herself. Okay, the father comes and sees the kids maybe on the weekend or whatever, and he doesn't have final decision on almost anything when it comes to the kids, right? So it comes to the children. So this is how this goes. This is the dichotomy of these basically households, and a combination of households combined creates a community. Okay, so when you walk outside that house, you go into society, which is that community. And when you have one or two individuals having this behavior, okay, it does not have that much impact. But when you have majority of people exhibiting this behavior, it makes maximum impact, maximum destruction. So that's why you have the places, unfortunately, that you have across America. I don't care if you want to talk about Jackson, Mississippi. I don't care if you want to talk about St. Louis, Missouri, Chicago, Illinois, Detroit, Michigan, you name it. You show me those areas, I'll show you a failed matriarchy. Okay. Now, again, a lot of times how this goes is from very simply negative. A lot of women's day-to-day interactions in any human is based off of behavior. Okay. A lot of times one of the things that I've noticed, and Kevin Samuels called this the modern woman, is they have very bad behavior. And that behavior, a lot of times I would say,
the worst of that behavior is the black woman in America. Very, very aggressive, very rowdy, and very mannish. Okay. And unfortunately, what happens is, and I've been guilty of this as well. I'm not going to say that I have not participated, but basically, a lot of guys just, because it's just more of these types of women than anybody else. They just give in, and then they basically copulate with these women, and then have more children, right? And it continues on, right? Um, Unfortunately, that's normally how that goes. And you have you have a wide variety of societies where you might say it's not a failed matriarchy, because there are black communities that are still very much matriarchal, but family is still somewhat intact. They both live with each other. They might go to church, go to other events together. They live with each other with family. They go visit friends that might be also married. So you do have societies in the black community. Not all of the societies in the black communities are quote unquote failed matriarchies. That's definitely not the case. Fortunately. But all of the basically a lot of what the failed matriarchies exhibit, I'll just point it out, just as far as what I've noticed, because I've been to a few failed matriarchs. I've been to Gary, Indiana. I've been to Chicago, or I've lived in these places. Basically, the poorest of these societies or cities, it makes up a lot of these types of environments, and it's based off of, because see, here's the thing, and it goes back to Kevin Samuels again, because Kevin used to always say and point out that basically men that make money, and it's not even just high value men, once men start to make money, they tend to want a higher standard. So that higher standard is a certain level of appreciation, submissiveness, or respect, or behavior, positive behavior towards me, towards a man, right? So a lot of these neighborhoods where, let's just say, they're poor working class, that and also I'll just add a black community, um basically they make up of these failed matriarchies that is basically the only ones left are men that they have also kind of don't have any other choice but to sleep with these women and copulate with these women, and just basically try, toil and fight as they must to try to, keep things together as best as they can. And that might consist of them going to jail because they had a domestic violence charge with their baby's mother, or you could even go worse, right? So these things are, what's going on in these, like, kind of poor working class failed matriarchies, where basically you have a lot of men that really are, they're simps in a general case, but they're basically either they're simps, is a combination of men, it's opportunists, and it's just, simps, and then you got other elements, you got pimps involved in all of this and stuff too. But I mean, basically a lot of what the men that they deal with, they basically simps because they put up with that behavior,
You know, you don't have to tolerate bad behavior by anybody. You learn that when you're, you know, in school. Your parents tell you you don't tolerate bad behavior or disrespect from others, right? You learn that, and a lot of these guys put up with this, and they're simps, and those are the guys that stick around. Those are just the guys that stick around that they deal with, and they also don't have a lot of money or have any money at all. Might even in the case. So you put both of those together. You got a man is desperate to find a place to stay. So he might even be a combination of a simp and a hobosexual, you know, so because you know that's a hell of a combo. You know, and that's how extreme, you know, these you know, impoverished and working class communities are. I mean, you have a guy that's a combination of two things, a simp, and how can you be a simp and a homosexual at the same time? But yeah, I mean, you have those elements, right, where you got guys that just don't have any money coming in, so they have to have housing, right? They have to have somewhere to go, so they'll put up with all of these behaviors, you know, these bad behaviors, and then they, you know, have children with these women, so the children are, you know, have some degree or another of dysfunctionality because they don't have stable, consistent parents, or their parents stable and consistency consist of toxic behavior and toxic you know um interactions, you know. So it's a lot of stuff that, you know, goes on and festers, and it becomes this environment like in the boondocks where the only reason why you're there is because you don't have enough money to go anywhere else. So you kind of like stuck on this, you know, because it was a scene in the Boondocks where they showed, I think, where the rapper Thugalicious, or I don't know, the rapper, one of the rappers in that in that little animation cartoon or whatever, he was from this place where I think it was an electric fence or some type of fence off area where it was just like one way in and one way out, and it was fenced in heavily, almost like the border wall, you know, near Mexico. And you know, they were just stuck there, like, you know, almost like refugees. So uh that's kind of how a lot of these failed black community matriarchal structures are. Like I can take you to the bad parts of, like, the extremely bad parts of Chicago, and I mean, this is exactly, you know, what's going on. You have extreme levels of violence, poverty, and you have these women that they have some type of matriarchal control by proxy of the local economics, right? Their men don't have that much money, and you know, they have a lot of money. And then not only just money, they have government subsidies also to add. So they have possibly free housing, right? Because Section 8, or you know, they have money, right? They have resources, right? They in the you know, a lot of these lower socioeconomic areas, women probably do have more money than or make more money than the men, because a lot of these lower socioeconomic areas, the men are the ones heavily unemployed, you know. And here's another interesting thing, and this is just kind of personal. Like, one of the things that I noticed about these types of women, um, it seemed weird to me, and I understood,
on a like a kind of a sexual marketplace value level, like why women did this. But one of the things that I noticed was like, and this was like kind of personal family members of of mine. I wondered, why would a woman that is highly educated, or yeah, at least educated, okay, bachelor's or higher, right, and can make a decent amount of money, why would they just go live in a hood, quote unquote, or a ghetto, or let's just say a lower socioeconomic area? And one of the things that I found out was, just kind of casually digging into the layers of it, was the reason why is these women live in those areas of where they date, of who they're having sex with. So you'll have, and this is one of the strange things that I learned, in my work, my times working in the different places that I worked. I was, I just found it strange that it was women that would, made a decent amount of living, that still lived in the hood. And I found out why. And one of the reasons is those women date those men in those particular neighborhoods. They a lot of times wanted, and maybe men do this as well, but women live around who they're mating. They typically, typically what they do. And it, because you can't really, I couldn't really explain why a woman that makes probably close to $100,000 a year would live basically in a ghetto. In a basically in a really bad neighborhood. Okay. And it's like, yeah, that was because those are the men that they typically date, or have sex with. And once I realized that, it was like, wow, it was kind of like mind blowing, because men typically, they don't do that. Like, men might go to certain neighborhood bars and lounges or something, if they dated women that of a lower socioeconomic class than them. But they won't live in those areas, unless they you got some men that they really like hood women, so they would open up a business or something and just kind of be in that general area, to be around those women. I think that's to an extent what I see, but not to just live there, not necessarily. But um most of what I noticed is men definitely they won't live um in those areas. They would probably pick a woman up that lived in that area, but they wouldn't necessarily, like, I have picked up many a women in, lower socioeconomic or, dangerous neighborhoods. And then I brought them safely back to my suburban apartment. But I ain't, I never lived near there and then tried to, just because I wanted to try to date those types of women. It wasn't that type of party. But yeah, like, these, a lot of times these women, they like those types of men, and they can control them. They can be matriarchal with those men easier. See, it's certain men that women can be really matriarchal with, and the men that they can't really be matriarchal with, then
those are the men that they constantly arguing with and trying to fight or whatever because those men give them a hard time. And it's like, yeah, like it's quite something that I mean, again, I noticed way before I got to YouTube. I mean, I noticed all of these behaviors, but I didn't necessarily have a name to it. But now I do. And knowing all of this, like it's no way it's it's no way I can try to even you know deal with any of this. Like I can't really yeah, I definitely cannot deal with this, like be like dealing with someone that's matriarchal like that, like in the same house. I just I tried it and it just, yeah, it doesn't work, and it will never work, and it's just personally something that I don't ever want to try to deal with ever again. I mean, like, I would never even want to try, so because I mean, I've had women ask me stuff like, what do you like or whatever, like what do what's your deal breakers and all of this, and I tell them you know um it's pretty much whatever I say go. Like, a woman would definitely have to follow my direction. Like, and a woman to say, yeah, that's yeah, I have a hard time with that. Yeah, good luck with that, or yeah, that's not gonna work or whatever. And I tell them, because I definitely don't, I don't follow women. Like, that's just not something. It's not something that I think is normal. Like, I had to follow my mom around. I mean, I was young, I was a kid, but when I grew older, like, I established, the fact that I was a man. I mean, like, I I don't, look at a woman like she's my mama. Like, that's just not something that I have, inside my brain. And plus my dad was around. Like, I grew up with my father. Like, I don't I don't look at a woman outside my mother as my mom. You know what I'm saying? I might be like one of the few or whatever that's normal minded to think such, but and I know it's I'm pretty sure it's quite a few, but I mean, man, I can't do it. I tried, like, and it's no way I can. It just ain't in me. And then you start to understand a lot of that shit. Like, I'm sure it's some women that probably are really good at being matriarchs, but most women are most likely bad matriarchs because it's just, they just don't do all of what's required to be done. Like, it's just, I mean, it's a lot involved in being a decision maker, or even just, let's just say, being a coach. It's a lot of things involved. It's a lot of stress, and a lot of that stuff, it was designed for men to do it. It wasn't really designed for women to do. Like, all this aggressive shit, all of this hardcore stuff, it just wasn't designed for women to actually do. And that's why a lot of nature and biology is like taking its course. And if women really don't really sit back and look at research and look at what is actually going on, um what's going on is very, very dangerous, because actually women are prematurely dying a lot faster than normal, because all of this stress on the body, trying to be, corporate career chick and all of that, boss chick, it's literally having women get up out of here. Like, I'm talking 50 years old, 40s, because it's, you got a combination of things. You got stress, depression, you got all kinds of emotional stuff going on, lack of sleep, all of these things, trying to, be independent and make money and deal with all of this stress, day-to-day stress. Like, we get crunched up, and we die, when we die, and we deal with all of this shit, and it's rough on us, but we kind of were designed to deal with it. We got more years of evolution to deal with this, toil and rough and toil, day-to-day toil of work. Whereas like women, they are really new to this, and their body is new to this, and their mind is new to this. And they weren't designed to actually to do all of this stuff. And it's like, you sit back and you see, when people go outside of nature, things kind of get kind of messed up, get kind of like, thrown off course. And that's what I notice about that. But at the same time, again, like, um it's just not in me to like just like, dude, like, I'm like 6'3". I'm like almost like, I'm about like 270, 280. So I'm like NFL linebacker build. I know jujitsu very well. I wrestled in high school. I used to fight like almost all the time in Dalton. Like, that's one of the things about Dalton, man. Like, you seen that fight where they were fighting in City Hall or something or somewhere. Like, that's what dudes do, man, in Dalton, man. They be just fighting. It's like, man, I went through all of that, and to grow up to get ruled by a woman, a woman telling me what to do, telling me, basically, telling me what the fuck to do on a day-to-day basis. Like, she could whoop my ass, right? Like, it's just not how I was raised. Like, I mean, none of my friends even, they don't have a dynamic like that. They don't work well in no dynamic like that, because I mean, all of us, we grew up, we was fighting each other, getting into it with each other, competing over women, and, doing all kind of stuff, man, being rough and aggressive teenagers. Like, we wasn't even listening to no women then. Like, we was barely listening to our mother. It was like, what the fuck you think we grew up to fucking just listen? Like, all of us are like strong, alpha, whatever you want to call, type of men that didn't take no shit and ain't take no shit from dudes. So you think like, okay, I grew up, and then, I'll be responsible or whatever, and I'm gonna listen to some woman, man. Please, dude. Like, please. It just ain't in me. Like, it just, like, it, you know what I'm saying? And I'm glad it's not in me. Like, by the grace of God, I'm so glad it's not in me, because, like, I mean, it's backwards. It doesn't work. Look at the black community. The black community in America is the laughing stock of the world. Like, they everywhere around the world, they just, looking at Chicago and shit, looking at Memphis and DC and shit. And it's like, yeah, it's the laughing stock of the world, and it's like, basically, this, you look at all of this, what's the base of it? It's this failed matriarchy, failed black matriarchy, that you see all across the United States, where you have these poor black women with this, the power of subsidies, with the power of money and coochie power and all, girl power, and they got a whole bunch of leverage over these poor black men in these, environments that they live in, plus the coochie power. And it's like these guys don't have nothing. They live in areas where it's like 40% unemployment, 30% black male unemployment, 50, 60%. And these dudes don't have no job. They gotta go around asking people to cut grass, and they're grown adults, and you know walk. They gotta walk everywhere they go because they don't have enough money. They lost their car, or they don't have no car. They ain't had no car in years because they just been dealing with rut after rut after rut. Like, yeah, these women have a leg up in environments like that, and they deal with those men. They deal with a lot of these guys that have no other choice, really, or whatever. And I mean, some of these women, they just want to get pregnant. They just want a dude to basically impregnate them. And it's like, it goes back to like how easy sometimes, they say black women are, because they just be like, a lot of times you got women that they just want to get pregnant, and their requirements are none. They don't have any requirements, other than maybe, if you healthy or not or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's like, it's like when you have when you that damn easy, like what do you do? Like, so it's you got a lot of moving parts. But you look at these areas and wonder why they like that, and why there is a concept called black matriarchy. It's something to it. And it's like, knowing is half the battle, right? Like, because this is something that I just think that only thing could happen is men put this in check. Like, the only way, I mean, it's kind of checking itself, is, because it's, I mean, in essence, unfortunately, because it's just so many people that are, it's so backwards. I mean, unfortunately, the way I see it is kind of sad the way I see it, but it's gotta be like a generational change. Obviously the older women, they're not changing. They're not going to change. They don't have any incentive to change. So it's on basically the newer generations to kind of try to come up with some type of solution. And unfortunately, the solution is just, it's already working its course. I'm like Elijah Muhammad, when he got sad when he was writing, he saw visions of the future and shit like that. He was like real sad. He wrote it down in his books, one of his books. I think it was Message to the Black Man. But I mean, the only solution to this sadness is already working itself out. A lot of a lot of the black community is LGBT. The LGBT is actually rising in the black community, and the reason why it's doing that is because these women are leaning to other women to survive. It's that bad. So nature is kind of working things to the point where it's going to be like some type of, kind of die off. Is what I'm trying to get to. And it's unfortunately, I've did the numbers. I did a video. It probably had glitches in it or something. It was probably low quality. But I did a video basically breaking down, because I was trying to figure out um why this whole dating dilemma is so messed up in the black community. And one of the things that I realized looking at the data was it's not that many um like younger women in the black community. A lot of the black community consists of women that are 35 and older. It's a big percentage of black women that are 35 and older. And when a woman gets 35 and older, they are pretty much getting prepared to like stop having children or not have any more children or any children at all or whatever. And they're pretty much, that's a kind of almost to a point where you're going into being a grandparent yourself. That's not prime dating age. So you have a older aging population, and from that, just basically more people dying. Okay. And I mean, this thing kind of has to, kind of like a tumor or a cancer, it has to metastasize and then, kind of die off and shrink off, because it's just dysfunction. It's in it's very much easy to see, break it down why it is, how it got out of hand and everything like that. But it's already biologically, and if you look at it biologically or scientifically, it's already working itself out, because it's kind of degenerating on its own, in its own way. Nature has a way of kind of, getting rid of the excess or the weak. Like it just does, and that's what is going on. Because again, like, nobody want to live in these neighborhoods where people are stealing, committing all kind of violent crimes, and single mother, basically. I mean, basically, I don't know who came up with the term, but basically, this is basically a lot of what these areas are. They call them single mother strongholds, because basically those are primarily the areas, where it's the most violent. Basically lower socioeconomic. It's basically overran by single mothers. And I mean, you don't have to be a demographic expert to point that out either. And this has something to do with economics. It has a lot to do with economics. It has a lot to do with finance, society. It covers a lot of different areas. It's a very important topic and problem that black people definitely have. And even the other people are affected by it as well, non-black people. So it's like I say, I mean, this thing will obviously generationally work itself out, because that's just kind of what nature does. It works itself out regardless. But I mean, as far as me personally, if you're not with it, I mean, you don't have to participate. You know what I'm saying? Put your foot down. If there's black men in this country, they put their foot down, and they don't have no household where it's like, some matriarchal stronghold. Like, no, they might, I mean, black women, I think do have, strong matriarchal behaviors. I mean, I I think that just kind of, it's almost like they're self-taught. Black women are self-taught to be that by their mothers a lot of times, or aunts and friends, whatever peer group they have. They're socialized to be that way, to act that way. So it's very difficult to quote unquote suppress. But when it comes to different, some people households, they don't really tolerate that, and they kind of pretty much kind of perpetually kind of check their wife the behavior on the spot, and she kind of she gets some, like, she gets some gynocratic or matriarchal shorts, and then the guy has to zap her back in place. Hey, what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I recommend comedy, like, grab your wife and just, I'm here, grab her neck and give her a massage and be like, I'm working out the short circuits that you had earlier. Let me work those out. And she probably laughed because she fucked up, and then, you get it together, and then you have a good night, and then, you move forward to the next day. But I mean, it's not like all households are, it's, women is just strong matriarchs, like Isaiah Thomas's mom, where she's just, aggressive black woman from the west side of Chicago, in the early 1980s or late 70s, that was a single mom, that had a shotgun under the, sink to ward off the gangbangers and whoever else was around. Like, I mean, it's not like all black women are like that to that degree, or, that severe, a lot of what women, the reason why women are aggressive in general, or, black women or otherwise, is based off of, basically what feminists or whatever complain about. Is the patriarchy or whatever, right? So when a patriarchal man, a typical provider man, right, is in a house, it's like he provides layers. Okay, a good father, like even myself, if I'm around, if I'm, it's just my nature, it's just how I was raised, a lot of different things. Me being around, I'm a layer. I'm a layer of protection. I'm a layer of support, for various forms of support. I provide layers. Okay. And it's like, yeah, I almost forgot why I was bringing this up, and I kind of had a brain freeze. But those layers provide some type of like support. Okay, so when a man is around, and you don't have a single mother household, and the father is there, he provides certain layers, and those layers remove burdens. So if that man was not around, there'd be certain burdens, and sometimes it's a case where the father, he might not be as competitive as other fathers, right? So the thing is that I'm just saying, like a typical general, let's say corporate father, corporate dad, he has layers. Okay, he's gonna, it's gonna be more, it's a financial layer of support. a physical layer of support, emotional layer of support, psychological support, a lot of different levels of support, right? So the children coming up in that, both male and female, they become softer. Okay. In that environment of having their dad with all of these layers of support, plus their mom support, right? Um, they have a lot of support, a lot of sustainability to where things are not that rough. You know, you just had pancakes, milk, and they just decide to take it back to their room and um finish watching their favorite show, and they thinking about going back to sleep or playing a video game. And you know that's when they're 8 years old, versus you know loud music, living in an apartment with roaches, grease on the walls, loud music up, on a floor above, gunshots, hearing out the, hearing outside the window, or basically outside, and being surrounded by the most dangerous men and most violent men in areas and people, around you on a day-to-day basis, versus living in a house in suburbia with your dad, your mom. It's a certain level of just ease where, you know, um, when you grow up like that, with that a certain level of ease, right? Because it's like the opposite of ease is dis-ease, right? So, you know, um, it's a lot of stress and a lot of hardcoreness that you gotta have to deal with that environment, right? So that's why you have a lot of women that have that hardness, because they had to deal with they didn't have a lot of support growing up because the father was not around. In that father not being around, that's not a bad thing, in a sense of, it's not always the blame of the father. And this is what people have to kind of grow up to understand, as an adult, as a thinker, as a logical thinker. You have to understand that a father not being in a house is not always a bad thing, in a sense where you blame the father, because it might be a situation where the woman is incapable of dealing with men, or the woman just didn't get along with the father or whatever, and she drove the man away, or she filed for divorce or whatever. So it's not always the man's fault in a relationship why he's not in the house, or why he can't be around the kids all the time and raise the children. Most of the time the children go to the woman, right? That's the way it goes in America. And um even that's the way it goes in nature. I mean, like, men typically don't be trying to raise children. This is not naturally how it goes. Can it go that way? I mean, yeah. Can it go that way? But nature was definitely not designed for men to be single parents. And I bet you, if you show me a single dad, I bet you, 2 or 3 years later, that dude will be trying to find a woman to marry. You know what I'm saying? Because men are faster and more efficient and precise when it comes to getting people, or whatever, when we need one, right? Like women playing games and trying to be like they're in high school again after they have a baby and become a single mom. Like a dude, we don't have time for all that bullshit. We understand reality. We need a fucking mother, right? We need someone to help cook pancakes in the morning or breakfast in the morning for the kids, right? So, guys will go get right on that. Probably like a year tops two. He already probably got somebody that he's about to marry that the kids don't like. Okay. He found the stepmom. Like, we don't play about that shit because we know, we just not designed to be raising children by ourselves. But the thing is that, yeah, it goes that way where they raise the children, so they have the children. So it's not, like I say, you gotta understand, it's not all like the father's fault, like because he's not in the household or whatever. Like even Tupac's mother, she lied to him and told him his father died. Come to find out his daddy was looking for him. You got foul women like that too. It's like, women and men could both be at fault, or could, yeah, like one or the other could be at fault. Like it is a concept. It's called logic. But the thing is that, in the black community is a lot of fatherless households because, two people that are at odds with each other can't get along, right? And you got a lot of behaviors that black people exhibit, like sexual behaviors, to where, they like having sex, and then babies happen, but they don't like each other, or they both don't really want to settle down because the guy, he was, it's like a guy, when he thinks about getting married, he's like, his pussy is cut off. Like, ain't no more pussy, and you might be like, damn, I'm running through these bras like the juggernaut, and you don't want to stop. You don't want to be tied down, and you're not going to give them a green card or hall pass or unlimited hall pass. So they just be like, nah, I don't want to get married because I want to. They're not smart enough or um communicative enough to explain to you that they want to keep fucking somebody. They don't want to just stop with you. Like, and that is, I understand that notion. I do understand that. Like, and the thing is that, that's one aspect of it. And another aspect of it is just, two people don't necessarily want the same thing. And, you when you lay down with somebody, you both taking a risk. I mean, I definitely wouldn't tell my daughter to be laying with some man and y'all don't know what each other want for the future. And y'all don't want what each other want for the future. And y'all didn't even get to the point where y'all talked about that. Y'all just was on some straight, let's go to have sex, 0 to 60, and that's just a recipe for disaster, because you got to have some type of compatibility when it comes to long-term relationship. You have to, and part of that compatibility is getting along. Like, when you take the behaviors outside of sex, do you really even like that person outside of sex? Do you like being around this person? You like talking to this person? You like the way she laughs? Like I never forget. I had a crush on this chick from my high school. All fucking throughout my high school, I had a crush on this one chick. And, God, works in mysterious ways. Like all of a sudden, like I'm working at the restaurant, in high school with the chick I had a crush on. And I didn't even never even told her. I never told her that. Like I just basically, never, I was like, oh, okay, I work with this chick now, okay. And she had a strange laugh. I can't remember how it sounds, but she had the most corniest laugh that I ever heard. It was like worse than a white chick, and this is a black chick, right? I mean, it was the worst, corniest laugh you've ever heard. And it's like, I mean, I know I'm going all over the place, but I mean, it's like basically this chick, man, I couldn't even deal with a chick like that. Like, I mean, that kind of turned me off. When I heard her laugh, I'm like, oh hell no. And it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of things that have to do with compatibility. I'm capping my ass off. I would have dealt with that laugh. I mean, I'd have found a way, bro. But she was like, man, she was dealing with dudes that was playing college football and we was in high school. So she was, it was, I don't know. Maybe I never hollered at her. At the end of the day, I never did. And I should have, what I'm saying? I should have grew some nuts and yeah. But the thing is that at the end of the day, people have to be compatible. And that determines long-term relationships. And a lot of times people, black people, we do like to fuck and have sex, and it's clouds a lot of our judgments as far as things. And one of those things is you don't need to be compatible to have sex with each other. You don't need compatibility for that. You do need that though when the other party has your baby. You do need that if you want to have a healthy, sustainable, long-term relationship with that person and raise those children. Compatibility is essential for a long-term relationships, right? Um, and the thing is that a lot of people, I think this should be taught in schools. I think it should be taught as early as like middle school or whatever, like, or junior high. And it should be different lessons on it because that's what's really messing people up. Most people get messed up based off of basically relationships that they really shouldn't have been in. I mean, like, to the exception of like high school relationships, like I think people at that point, they have some compatibility. If you boyfriend and girlfriend in high school, maybe you probably, y'all have known each other for a while. You probably do have understand y'all do have some level of compatibility or whatever at that point. I mean, like, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, random strangers or random hookups, or even like, you've known each other for like a whole couple weeks or whatever. Like, yeah, you can have sex and have no compatibility or hardly limited compatibility with each other, and can't live with each other long term to have a healthy, sustainable relationship and raise children. Like, forget trying to make it legal or, as far as marriage or anything like that. it's like basically, and then yeah, people get married and are not compatible. You know what I'm saying? It's like it doesn't matter if you do it legally or not. It's about, are you compatible with this person? Do you have chemistry with this person? You know, and it's like a lot of those things are important when it comes to, having a black community where, it's not a matriarch or, you know what I'm saying? Like you gotta, you know, you gotta have a higher, like a different standard, you know what I'm saying? And that goes for men too. Like men should have a higher standard, and that's where I think, to a certain extent, I think that's where we are with this whole, I guess, gender dynamic, because the men have slightly are pushing towards a higher standard, where the women are like, kind of like, fuck that, you know I need some higher money or some shit like that, some higher income or whatever. But um that's leading things to where they are, where women are doing what they're doing and men are doing what they're doing, and I mean, that's just kind of how this thing is. I see this thing going, as far as the solutions or whatever, because I don't like to leave without having some type of solution. But I mean, what I see is what I see. I think this is, again, like I said earlier, going to kind of have a die off effect, or just going to kind of, evolve into something, that works, or, devolve again to, actually, regardless, just not existing. But the thing is that I don't think that, it's something that you got to worry about. I mean, if I was like some young black guy listening to this, I wouldn't worry about it too much, because I mean, all you got to do is, be the type of guy, if, you put your foot down, and, you able to vet, the women that are kind of more soft, more, kind of shielded and restrained. You probably gonna have a situation where you'll have some type of personal, patriarchal family, because it, believe it or not, it is guys that have, sustainable households, sustainable families. I would say it's not that many, but it is, some families that do have some type of sustainability, some type of, you know, cohesion, they work together, you know. And those things are important, like I say, I said this before: cohesion, chemistry, and compatibility. Because, you do have to kind of work together. You gotta have some type of cohesion. Like, can't just be like, okay, she working and then you sleeping on the couch and growing beer bellies, and she come home, the TV on, and it's, beer cartons everywhere, and cans and cigarette smoke. Like, I mean, you can't. You gotta have some type of cohesion where y'all working together. Where, you know, you opening up a store, and she going to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, y'all both doing something. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, a lot of people just they weren't taught these things, and it's just things simple, like, it's simple to me after the fact. I became like an expert with relationships after I've had a few relationships, you know what I'm saying? And it's it's after the fact, you know, but I learned these things. Like these are like, man, you know, I could put this shit into like a book, you know, curriculum, and you know what I'm saying? It's like it's something that I figured out because, you know, people do get fooled to think that, oh man, I just, you know, this is some of the greatest sex I ever had. This is the best. Like that's your animal brain believing that or thinking that. You can have some of the best sex you ever had, and y'all both can't really, they're not compatible. And that's what women have a hard time understanding, and even men have a hard time. But I think mostly women have a hard time understanding that, because that really, I guess, is something that women are dealing with, modern women are dealing with, because they have the autonomy to pick whoever they want to, as far as men that they want to engage in, whatever they want to engage with. And they're picking men based on some Sex in the City shit, like who can fuck me the best, like, and who can, and the tripped out thing about who can fuck you the best ain't necessarily got anything to do with someone that's gonna help you. Y'all both help raise healthy, sustainable, you know, children. Like on a long term, in a long term relationship basis. Like those things. Like, I mean, it's a concept. It's possible. Like, you know, people have had children and found a way to work things out, you know, to work with each other, to deal with each other, you know. That is not a new concept. I mean, it has worked for some people, but what, you know, what typically happens is, you know, people just, they, if they even have good sex, I mean, you know, they have, you know, children, and then, you know, they have some type of bond with each other. They know is great, but then just, you just can't get along for whatever reason. They just can't get along with each other. But you can have the best sex ever, you know, and just basically not get along with each other, you know, or you, both parties don't want to concede independence. Like, I mean, a lot of what it is like, you know, people are single and or whatever, they don't want to yield their independence. They you know, like their independence. I think that's a lot of, you know, why relationships are why they are, you know, as well. Um, you know, because, you know, people just wanna, they don't want to yield, you know, their little small island of independence, you know. But the thing is yeah, those things are important when it comes to long term relationships, you know. And um, you know, a man being able to like penetrate you and you coming all over the place, you know, that don't have anything to do with that. Like, and I mean, to be honest, that's what those older, the women like Alexis Tyler, she warned women back in the 90s. She was doing those little old videos. Those videos was from the 90s, and I'll tell you how I know they was from the 90s. They used to have, like, on cable, they used to have these local channels where you basically can have like a local production um on your local cable TV channel, you know, in every like local neighborhood or whatever, they had this. So that was what that was. They just put it on to YouTube, but she was telling women men have a certain level of sexual power that you can't control, you can't do nothing about, and once they have it over you, I mean, they have control over you. You know, you basically you a addict. You a addict and they got the drug. And basically what I just gave you, like I ain't gonna even like I'm not even gonna lie to you. What I just gave you was what I just told you right there is like kind of like what pimps know. Like they they actually a lot of times what pimps do uh or how they control certain women. A lot of the women that are out there that are like selling sex or whatever, prostitutes, a lot of those women have some type of let's just say they have some type of nymphomania. Okay, a lot of women are nymphomaniacs, sexual addicts, right? um and it's almost like sexual addiction is it is a thing. um it is an actual thing, right? And it is a serious thing, right? So you got women that they're nymphos, and you know they get to addicted to a certain they get to addicted to a certain level of sexual prowess, or a guy that could, you know, basically get them to come or sexually satisfy them. And what happens is they'll get with these guys and they're mentally, you know, kind of like really let's just say gullible to anybody or even men, and they'll just believe anything somebody tells them, right? They'll go along with it. And you put those two combinations together, and you know basically um that's like you know basically these women are sexually sexual addicts, and they might even only just like having sex with the pimp, and the pimp is just giving them a like a taste, like almost like an injection, like a sexual injection, because they're an addict, you know. And it's really crazy, but to explain, I'm all over the place. But I understand. I know why these, you know, a lot of these women, they be having, you know, be having these babies, and they be you know, getting pregnant by these men, because it's kind of like what I said with Alexis Tyler, what she was talking about. Like these women don't understand the danger. Like I'm gonna tell my daughters, like, you know, the dangers of like not really understanding male nature or male sexual power. Like, I mean, men. That's why men are as confident as they are. Like, that's one of the major sources of our powers, or if you want to call it the patriarchy. You know, basically our penis. I mean, like a man can literally, I mean, do all kinds of magic when it comes to women sexually. Like they even say, like if you say something in a would ask a woman to do something while you having sex, like she probably gonna do it. Like, I mean, it's like literally like almost like a penis. No, I'm not saying all men have the ability to do this, but a lot it's men that have the ability to use their penis like a magic wand. Like they could just They stick it in alakazam, and then basically the woman is gonna do whatever they say they want to be done. Like women, literally, men have been doing that to women for I mean eons, and it's like whatever they want. You could see this on basically it's I don't know if it's a show that's still on cable, um but I think it was like it's called Snapped, or it's another show was why did I date him or something, or it was a show basically by it was women that were getting involved with these violent men, and these men did all kinds of crazy stuff, and they were basically they were basically involved, like almost like a Bonnie and Clyde situation, because their boyfriends were extremely violent, and they were criminals, so like they were just doing all kinds of stuff, for these men, and whatever the man told them to do, they went and did it. Like, and you got women that's out here just like that. Like, they're extremely submissive. Like, you just see a dude, you see a dude that's a pimp, that okay, he's got women out there doing, they selling their pussy or whatever, right? But you don't think, well, it's men that get women to do all kind of stuff. Like just, they ain't necessarily gotta sell sex, but they go set somebody up, or they um go rob a bank, or go carry some drugs across, um the country or whatever, all kinds of things, because um they still they still are, you know they have a certain level of magic. They have, like, almost like under a magical spell from their boyfriend, or whoever the guy that they're with. Like, that's the power that men have, you know to an extent. Like, if you used like the dark side, right? you know um on a lighter note, I mean, you know you can convince a woman to have your baby. I mean, I guess, it's not so bad. But um the thing is that, yeah, like, men have that power. Men have the power, a very strong um sexual, power and energy, right? And it's like, a lot of women, they play around with that shit, and they find out, and then they get, they get involved with, their first, I guess, you in the like BGS Sidmore says, the imprint. They get imprinted by their first sexual alpha, and then they become addicted, and then they were vulnerable in the first place, and they had no power to control, that addict, like women get addicted by men. That's why it's called. I even think that's why it's called the word addicted. Like, it's like, I mean, women literally, they get. I mean, like women get, like, man, they get so addicted by men. It's crazy. Like, a lot of that, like not wanting to break up and all of that, that's an addiction. That they have a sexual addiction to that man that they're with, and um a lot of men don't understand this. They don't, even probably, even, I mean, women probably understand it more, but yeah, women, you might think that they're so strong and lawless type of stuff. A lot of that is just, you've been browbeat to death and been talked down to death. If you just look at the vulnerabilities, and even just, I mean, I've done that. Like, I don't know how many women have been addicted to me, but like, I mean, they give very much. They don't even have any control when it comes to women. Don't have no control over no guy drilling them. I mean, like, they don't have no defenses against that. And that's why that's why, really, to be honest, why women had patriarchal structures where they had a father, right, that basically chose their basically husband for them, because they can't think on their own. Who just think about it for a second. And I know this video is long as shit, but just think about this for a second. I mean, what woman is gonna have control over a man thrusting inside of her, outside of her, in and out, and she's coming all over the place. She's begging him to stop, damn near. She just about to blow a fucking. I mean, she like ain't no woman got no control over no motherfucking hard dick, man, going in and out of them. Like, and I wish, like, you know women were taught that, like, and they mom don't tell them, they aunts don't tell them, because a lot of women, they like to be vicious towards younger women by like knowing what's coming and don't tell them, and then seeing the blowback, and kind of like just seeing them suffer, knowing that they could have helped them, you know, by telling them what's possible or what's coming. They don't tell these younger women, like, these stuff. But Alexis Tyler told you. Alexis Tyler videos still on YouTube, and it's like, yeah, you think, and it's women. I mean, women have sexual power too. Like, women have men go crazy too. Women, man, it's dudes that kill men every single day just based off of a woman. If a woman told, it's dudes out here that if a woman told her dude to go kill someone, he's gonna go kill somebody, because he's so mesmerized and so pussy whipped, that he's under control via her vagina. And it's like, yeah, you do have a lot of dudes that's on that. Like, they on that time. Like, they'll even crash out because of, they felt disrespected around a woman or whatever. Crazy. It's all kinds of, yeah. It's dudes that crash out over, a lot of dudes crash out over women. They go caca. So I'm not saying that, women have sexual power too. Shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, shit, I'll be the first one to tell you that. It goes both ways, But when it comes to the male sexual power, to a certain extent, it depends on the person. I mean, it's just a thing where if a man knows how to control that, and basically ain't no woman got no controls over that. It's no control over that. Ain't no decision making. Is you about to get pregnant? That's the decision making. And it's like, yeah, God. That's why fathers picked husbands. I mean, that's literally why that happened. because you can't make no decision on who you want to be, who you want to be your husband, you know, based off of a sexual competition. Who sex me the best? It's like, obviously that doesn't go well. Okay, yeah, you have fun, then you're gonna get your heart broke. He looked good, he gave you some good dick. And then now you looking for somebody else. Then he just, he had your vagina rent free for about 2 years. Then you gonna get somebody else. Then they see, boom, you're 35, no kids, one abortion in, um, one loose ovary, and now you have no prospects and you want to have children, and basically got a loose ovary and very few eggs, and your doctor tells you you might need a surrogate or um, basically some type of medical procedure in order to have children naturally. And it's like, yeah, that's how that works. It's like, your father knew best. Nature knew best. You know, and that was okay. We're not. Your father was not going to allow you to be basically used like a junkyard dog, or junk like you're a car that is to get used up and then sent to the junkyard. Like we, I mean, naturally and fatherly, we knew what men were on. We knew what men were capable of. We were trying to, basically kind of give you a leg up on men by choosing the right man, a worthy man that was fit for marriage. And it's like, yeah, it it's like, man, you see this shit, and it's like women try to make it look cool, because what they'll do is that women try to make everything cool. Even they try to make even getting evicted look cool, which is crazy. um Getting fired cool. Like, I mean, but the thing is this, like, when it comes to, like, kind of what they make trying to make look cool is, um after they um already gave up their body over, and to basically men just count numbers and Google of men, basically trying to cow out, instead of having the milk for free, than buying milk. you know like, it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, I had my whole phase, and like, it's nah, it just try to make things look cool, and it's like, nah, at the end of the day, like, them chicks from Sex and the City, they got older and became old hags. It's like, it's how that worked. um but the thing is yeah, it's trying to make everything look cool and shit, but nah, that shit ain't cool. You got played. You played yourself. And that's why a lot of these women, that's what makes Melissa Ford. That make like that turns into being a Melissa Ford, where you was this fine ass fucking woman, your 20s, your teens, your 30s, and then you 40 something years old, you pretty much an old hag. Okay, that look good, still look good, but you ain't having no children. you don't really like men like that because you done went through so many situations. And it's like, yeah, like that's how that is created because they don't they basically don't not understand the reality. What going through the whole, you know, just having a whole bunch of good recreational sex, like and going through them, and then after a while, it's just you had all of this sex, but no children, no long term relationships, and it's like, yep, that's how that goes. You know, not all the time, but that's how it goes. But I'm gonna close this on out. I've said way too much.